Listen to this and other great podcasts ad-free with Fox News Podcasts Plus. Just go to foxnewspodcasts.com for all the details.
Welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World, and today I'm going to save you from a dearth of bad bitches. If you don't have enough bad bitches in your life can be empty, exhausting, and it will feel meaningless. So what I aim to do today, I got two of the baddest bitches I know, and we're going to sit around and talk about our favorite bad bitches. And hopefully that will encourage you to find more bad bitches in your life to make your life fuller, richer, and 91% sexier. So joining me today, again, two of the very baddest bitches I have ever had the pleasure of knowing and loving deeply. I've got Kat Timpf and Dagan McDowell. Welcome, both of you.
Yay!
And here we go.
I'm so excited for this.
I'm so excited for this, too.
Do bad bitches cry? Because I kind of want to cry a little bit.
Yeah,
they do. They cry when they want to.
Exactly right. Because they feel deeply. They have an incredible artistic output. They are fearless and vulnerable. Dagan, that's a great question. Yeah. That's a great way to start this whole thing off. Who's your first bad bitch that you want to talk about?
Can I start with my mom?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, because I think we're all going to agree with this. Like, I look back, she died about a year and a half ago. But that woman endured, like, at the end of her life with optimism and never complaining about anything. Cancer, I don't mean to be a downer, but it actually is like the most incredible thing witnessing her. I'm like, how do you get out of knowing you're going to die? And you might die next week. You might die in a few months or even a few years. How do you get out of bed in the morning? And she would say, what are my options?
Yeah.
She's like, laying in the bed, waiting to die is not an option. She was like, you can find joy, the smallest amount of joy in every day, even in pain, even facing death. She's like, look out of the window. She's like, those boxwoods look great. And so she endured an incredible amount of pain, and those were the happiest days of her marriage, and those were the happiest days of our lives together. Strangely enough,
that's a really good point, because, and Kat and I have talked about this, the search for the dopamine rush that comes in the era of social media that I think so many younger people have gotten addicted to. They really, and I didn't put that together until I started talking to Kat about that. But that idea of finding, simple joy in things and true mindfulness rooted so deeply within you. And I think you have to have a bad bitch for a mom in order to be a bad bitch.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you do. My dead mom was a bad bitch too. But can I talk about Missy Elliott?
Absolutely.
Yes, you can talk about Missy. I'm sorry, I brought the room down.
No,
I didn't bring the room down at all.
Because
that's. But I have to say, because when I was thinking about my favorite bad bitches, my mom was the first person who came to mind.
Oh,
and
mine too.
I wouldn't have you two bad bitches in my life in the way that you are now if my mom hadn't died. So there you go. But go ahead, Missy Elliott.
Well, I'll do a quick story about my dead mom of when I was in trouble at school, because it wasn't my fault. This girl had bullying me and then whatever. And I was the one who got in trouble for it because her mom worked in the cafeteria, so she had power at Beck Centennial Elementary School. So my mom came in to pick me up or whatever, and she turned it on the school. She came in with this folder full of papers. She's like, here, I have a document of all the times that, this girl bullied my daughter. And, and if she gets in trouble, I'm going to take this to court. And I'm taking her home. And then we got in the minivan. She started laughing. I was like, what? And she opened the folder. There was nothing written on any of the paper. Nothing on any of the paper. So if she was the worst person to have mad at you, the best person to have mad, not
for you. Yes.
Yes. Which is how I feel like Missy Elliott is probably.
Yeah.
I do not know Missy Elliott, but I feel like I do. She's been around for so long, doing bad bitch stuff for so long, and she doesn't care about what anybody thinks about her, what anybody says about her. Being a female rapper, that's got to be the hardest thing in the world. I don't even know how you try for the first time to do a rap. How do you try for the first time without being scared? And then Missy Elliott's just boom, and she'll say disgusting things. She doesn't care because she's Missy Elliott, and she still is.
And there were women in rap and hip hop who had gone before her.
Yep.
But the fact that you take inspiration from them and you completely reconfigure the Rubik's Cube, and you say, no, I'm not necessarily going to look like every girl in a
Exactly.
hip hop video.
Yep.
Like I'm gonna throw out the style that I love.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I'm going to represent my beauty the way that I feel it.
Yes.
And I've always had so much respect for bad bitches like that.
Me too.
One of my favorite bad bitches is actually Serena Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
for a number of reasons. First off, Venus Williams was a superstar. And it's really hard to enter the sport where your sister is completely dominant. And then to go on and win almost a record number of, these major championships and fall in love and have a baby and own your beauty, create a brand, be supportive of other women in tennis, and then take your baby with you and be super stoked on your child and the fullness of womanhood and motherhood. And when something doesn't go her way, she gets mad. But then she refocuses, and she is such an otherworldly athlete because she has this incredible physical ability, but we have seen her grown into such full womanhood that I look at her and I'm like,
She's a dynamic person.
she's such a bad bitch.
She also, my mom was a great athlete, and she played competitive tennis. It was amateur tennis. So I grew up watching tennis with my mom, both in person and on television. Like, my mom installed a basketball hoop in our backyard and said it was for my brother. No. It was for her to go shoot free throws.
That's great.
And she was in her 40s by then. But Serena Williams, because of the way the Williams sisters came up, they didn't, their father essentially taught them how to play tennis. They didn't come up through the ranks the way that other...
Through a country club. Yeah,
Right.
but every other
Exactly.
kid in Los Angeles just grows up going to, the Riviera Country Club or wherever, surrounded by, hoity-toity rich people. And he was like, no, I'm actually going to figure out the skills and teach them because tennis is very lucrative.
And so my mother was just fascinated with them, how they came to have these incredible skills, and the fact that being like a country girl, it's like, oh, this can happen for women of talent. Number one, but number two, she changed the idea of what a tennis player could do in terms of physicality,
Yes.
and just unwavering athleticism. And also for
And
me,
unapologetic, too.
Yes.
And using power from a completely different part of her body than we had seen because, we had this image of tennis players as being, willowy and
dainty.
powerful. Yeah, exactly.
Chris Everett. But also, struggling with body image my whole life, I looked at Serena Williams and said, okay, now it made me, even as an adult, feel better about the way that I looked and just the way I was shaped. And I just felt like, where's this woman been all my life? I wish that she had been, around when I was growing up to look at her as a standard of beauty rather than something that was unattainable and airbrushed.
And
Yes.
I'm glad you brought up the sister thing, too, because I never thought about it that way before. Because I know it's weird when you have a sister. Like, I feel like that whenever I put makeup on, because I'm, like, competing with my sister who dominates the sport of being hot. Like, have you ever seen my
Julia
sister?
Jeff is very beautiful.
Yeah, I got the wedding photos back, and my favorite ones were all the ones she was not in. But I should take some inspiration and say, I have a place at the hot table as well.
This is Kennedy Saves the World. Don't go anywhere.
Fox Nation presents podcasts Women of the Bible Speak.
I'm Shannon Bream, host of Fox News at Night and author of the new book, Women of the Bible Speak, the wisdom of 16 women and their lessons for today. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, foxnewspodcast.com, or wherever you download your podcasts.
You know what I didn't realize? That when I was in junior high and high school, that big asses were hot because that was not a thing in my junior high and high school. So I always tried to tuck my pelvis to hide my pot roast. And then Serena Williams came along. It's like, oh, very good. Thank you.
Flat-chested with a big butt. Like, that's where I always had this.
The only other
big
time,
thighs.
yeah, the only other time you saw that body type was at the Olympics with the sprinters, because the sprinters are all essentially flat-chested with big butts and legs. and that's where they get their power. So who's your next bad bitch?
Janis Joplin.
Oh, yes.
Like one of the greatest bad bitches ever. Just like she was ruthlessly bullied in high school, just ruthlessly. And she's like, I'm going to come and be, the greatest like female rock star ever. And the fact that she went through so many bands too, being like, no, I don't like this one. I don't like this one. I don't like this one. And just being completely unapologetically herself. And she'd go on stage being like sweaty, wearing no makeup. And then she starts singing and she's the hottest person ever. And the way she communicated through music, she was just always herself. The best. Truly obsessed with her. The first time that I saw her performances at Festival Express, like when I was in college, I watched them like 10 times and I watch them every year and they make me cry.
Yeah. What is it about 27-year-olds?
I don't know. Real sad.
It is
real sad.
I'm glad you're past that point.
Yeah, I know. That was a big, when I turned 28, I was like, boom! Showed you guys.
I like that every year.
What about you? Who's another bad bitch?
Marge Gunderson in the movie Fargo.
Oh, yeah.
I am, of all the movies, I am completely obsessed with her because she is a cop who's pregnant, who's out like having morning sickness, and is completely fearless when facing off with, killers. And I love Frances McDormand too, because she shows up at the Academy Awards and it's kind of like, don't care.
Yeah, who's this homeless fella?
I'm an actress and I just don't care. And I think that is the baddest of bad bitches because, again, it's like making it okay to look a certain way. It's like, hey, if you don't feel like pulling a comb through your hair and throwing on some makeup, you still got talent and you'll still be embraced.
Yes, and so
especially in Hollywood.
And the going rationale is you have to soften all of the creases and edges cosmetically. And she actually said something that I really appreciated. She said, in 20 years, we're not going to know what a 50-year-old woman looks like because we're all going to be so pulled tight and, we're going to be so manufactured. And I was like, that's absolutely right. And that was the first time I was like, yeah, I think it's kind of nice to show a little bit of age. And she also, the point she was making is we're supposed to be actors. We're supposed to be characters. Yeah. Like we're supposed to have, these believable faces. And if they can't move, and I remember seeing Halle Berry in a movie where she was supposed to play a homeless woman and she has these beautiful like chiclet teeth.
Yeah.
And it's like
piano keys.
She has Halle Berry. Yeah, she has Halle Berry piano keys. And I'm like, that is not believable for this character at all.
So Mayor of Easttown, I watched the whole thing, and it is just a soap opera. Some of the plot lines are completely not believable, but I just was obsessed with looking at Kate Winslet and seeing lines on her face.
Yes.
And that seems so simplistic, but it was just so nice to see somebody who's close to my age who looks like she looks better than I do in broad daylight, but it's closer than, say, Nicole Kidman, whose face is as tight as a trampoline bed.
And maybe that's who Frances McDormand was talking about, because Nicole Kidman, so beautiful, but it's like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to look well-rested and steamed. It's like someone took a steamer and got all the little lines out of your face.
No.
If only it worked that way.
I got another one.
Oh, yes.
Joan Rivers.
Yeah.
Tons of plastic surgery, but truly like my
she
idol.
owned it.
She owned it. She said like when she died, they'd have to don't give her body to Tupperware. She owned it. She owned everything. And I've never seen with comedy, making comedy out of dark things is something that's scary for anyone, and especially for a woman. She had so many horrible things happen in her life. Her husband killed himself, and then she gets on stage and makes jokes about it. Or if you watch the documentary about her, she looks at, my calendar, it's all what Kathy Griffin's taking all this stuff from me. Like, something that's been huge for me in mental health, as both of you obviously know, is the darkest, scariest stuff is less scary if you can make fun of it. And she had so much dark stuff, but she was never afraid to make fun of it.
And never afraid to make fun of herself.
Exactly.
And that's what, and she wasn't trying to hide anything with how she looked.
No.
She was and when she used to go on Johnny Carson, she was fantastic, and she got completely screwed over by the Tonight Show.
Yep.
But she still went on and continued building different levels in her career.
Of all the people who influenced me growing up, it was Carol Burnett and Joan Rivers. Like, I had Joan Rivers albums when I was a little girl, and I would watch her. She famously would go on Saturday Night Live. Remember, she used to make fun of Elizabeth Taylor when Elizabeth Taylor was very large. And
I will never forget. And I didn't know anything about Elizabeth Taylor because I was a little kid. And I was like, and my mom would laugh so hard. I'm like, who is this Elizabeth Taylor?
So I met her, Elizabeth Taylor, when she was married to Senator John Warner, when she was big like that. And so maybe that was my connection with Joan Rivers initially, but I loved Carol Burnett and I loved Joan Rivers. And it was the humor making the worst things in this life bearable.
Yeah.
Like being able to joke about yourself. But watching and listening to Joan Rivers and Carol Burnett, humor was a defense mechanism for me because I was all out of place. People didn't understand me. I didn't fit in, and I got picked on. So being able to turn that around, it was a way to deflect and kind of the attacks, but also it gave me power because if you can make somebody laugh, you own the world, quite frankly.
Also would never apologize. She would make jokes that were, mean, whatever. And people would be like, oh, I'm offended. She was like, never. I think that because of, the Middle East conflict, that clip has been recirculating where she's like, super pro-Israel, whatever. Someone's like, well, Rihanna said something. She was like offended by her comments. And she goes, tell Rihanna to ask her to spell Palestine. Like, it's just so completely like not saying either agree or disagree with her point of view there, but I completely love how right now when everyone's just groveling, like someone's like, I tweeted a bad thing when I was 16 and I will do the work and I deeply apologize. Comedians doing that, she'd be like, okay, and then she'd hit them back even harder because she understood that comedy, you swing, you miss, you say how you feel, and you can't apologize for a miss offending people.
It is living your life with unwavering fearlessness, and that's where
being unapologetic because this mentality, like it really this climate really misses someone like Joan Rivers, and Richard Pryor and George Carlin, who understood the power. And could you imagine Don Rickles in this stage?
Do you want to? Can I tell a quick story? I know he's not a bad bitch, but Paul Mooney died recently, and I got a chance to meet him and talk about him working with Richard Pryor. And I told him, I said, I was a little kid and I had bought all these Richard Pryor albums at the local record store at Blue Goose. And I used to sit up in my room with a headset on and a little teeny turntable, and listen to Richard Pryor albums. And I was like, my parents never could figure out why I cursed as much as I did, and in the way that I did, using words that had never been uttered in my parents' home. And I finally told them when I was in my 30s, I was like, you guys, I was like 11 or 12 listening to Richard Pryor albums upstairs. But Pryor, and along with like Rivers and all these other incredible comedians, particularly in the 70s, they tackled the most difficult subjects like race and just women not being in positions of power, and it made it okay to talk about them. And it opened up so many doors for me as a person. It's like, okay, this is the way I want to live my life, with a salty mouth and with complete fearlessness.
Yes, and when women do that, because they're constantly being told, you can't do this, you have to look this way. And every bad bitch has been told no so many times in so many ways. And they will not accept it. And that's another thing that makes you a bad bitch.
I never, like, even as a little kid, liked being told no.
No.
Like, I was very well behaved, but if it was something that I was interested in or wanted to do, even in school, if you told me you need to know your place and put your hand down, you're not allowed to answer every question, that would send my mother to school and threaten to have some teacher fired. Mom's like, she wants to participate. She's an overachiever. You're supposed to allow little boys and little girls to do that. If they want, if they want to speak, let them speak.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I digress.
No, digression not necessary. I think my last bad bitch is Queen Elizabeth. And it's, part of it is I'm obsessed with The Crown, and I watch The Crown pretty much every day. And I've seen every episode at least 10 times.
That's true. Can confirm.
Yes,
Every time I ask you what are you doing, I watch The Crown.
I'm watching The Crown. Yeah. No,
I do the same thing.
It's a glitch.
I eat and watch The Crown. It's like, oh, I haven't watched this episode 8 times.
Yeah, I love it. But the thing that I really like about it, and I know, it's probably like a lot of it is fictionalized and a lot of it is softened. But if you look at Queen Elizabeth's life and what she's had to go through, and the idea that she wants to serve her country and duty is the most important thing above all, even though she's surrounded by these hot-headed narcissists who are always trying to take her off course. And the fact that she commands respect, even from someone as annoying as Prince Harry. And, if you watch the show, you realize, like, there are Prince Harrys throughout the royal family. Like, there are these people who think that they are bigger than everyone else. They think they're bigger than their family and then their country and everything. And the Queen has always been this stable force. And now, because she's in her mid-90s, she is a subject of great fascination in this country, because we cannot fathom having someone who has been around, that visible and that active for so many decades.
And who just takes pleasure in washing dishes when she's in Scotland.
Yeah,
right?
And making little sandwiches.
Because Margaret Thatcher, another bad bitch, notoriously gave her some plastic gloves that she could wash dishes with as a gift up in Scotland. And I would have enjoyed that, but
I would have loved having plastic gloves from Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
That could be completely untrue, but I read that somewhere on the interwebs.
Well, Balmoral Test is one of my favorite episodes of The Crown. And that is when Margaret Thatcher and Dennis go to Balmoral. They're invited, and they're not really outdoorsy people. They're not country people. So Margaret Thatcher only brings pumps. And they're like, you got any boots? And she's like, no. And the Queen's like, yeah, but we're going to walk 18 miles looking for elk.
But these are our life lessons from these bad bitches. You always must pack a pair of sensible shoes.
Oh, yeah. You got to be able to walk 8 miles in whatever shoes you're in. That's why I'm always wearing crazy-looking clogs.
Yeah, clogs.
Which I just bought a pair of clogs. I just bought a pair of clogs.
Yeah.
I literally was walking by a window. It was like 50% off sale. And I was like, I'm doing some Kennedy right here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, who's your final bad bitch?
Oh, we can do fictional characters?
Yes.
This is random, but it just popped in my head. Lois from Malcolm in the Middle. I don't know if you've seen that show. You've seen that show. She's always screaming. She's working at the grocery store, and all her boys and her husband, they're just idiots. It's not just that they don't help her. All they do all day long is make things worse. And she keeps going to the grocery store, and she screams at them, but she's always right.
They're always right. That's the thing. Bad bitches are always right. I want to give an honorable mention to Dr. Bailey on Grey's Anatomy, Dr. Miranda Bailey. She is a fantastic bad bitch. She is the ultimate TV Dr. Bad Bitch. Last bad bitch. Dagan.
Who should I want to do somebody in real life. You two? Can I do you two?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take it.
No, I hate attention.
No, that's not true. I'm trying to think of people who inform my life. You two lately, you saved my life. I said that.
We love you so much.
We really truly love each other, and we spend time together, and we have brunches together. We have enchiladas and strawberry margaritas, and we're unapologetic about it.
Kennedy's a bad bitch because she you live this life of it's very easy, and it's like, I'm making food, come over.
Yes.
And in New York City, it doesn't work like that. It's like you got a plan, and nobody cooks, and you got to go out, and it's just not like that. It is the free form. We're sitting by a lake, just having a barbecue, and people just gather from around the neighborhood.
And they bring stuff, and it's great.
Yes, it is. But not better than your cooking, though.
No, and I've the amount of times I've slept on your couch. It's not 0. Or 5.
The best part about Kat is Kat loves the snack drawer that my girls have, and my girls and Kat all love the same snacks.
Oh, yeah. I do. I love children's snacks.
That's true. It's like, ooh, gummy stars and peanut butter crackers.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Perfect. All right, I want to thank you for being a part of the initial Bad Bitches Kennedy Saves
Are we
the
going
World.
to do this more, I hope?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll come better prepared when I'm not having like a late afternoon.
No, this has been perfect. It makes me think. I love sharing this. I'm going to keep my eye out for bad bitches. I got a bad bitch radar that is now in full effect.
Yeah, I'm going to walk through life now thinking about that.
Oh, yeah, as you should.
All right, this has been the Bad Bitches episode of Kennedy Saves the World, thanks to Kat Timpf and Dag McDowell. And we want to save your world from a dearth of bad bitches always. I'm Kennedy. For more podcasts from my friends at Fox, you can go to foxnewspodcast.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.
Listen to be part of the conversation with me, Brian Kilmeade. I'll talk about the biggest stories of the day and get your take along with some of the biggest newsmakers around. Listen live on the Fox News app or get the podcast at briankilmeadshow.com.